Well, it's Monday, and everything you saw with your own two eyes. Some football, couple of football games this weekend. But before I get into all of that, we pay tribute to John Adams, who passed away at the age of 71, a fixture uh, from every park, from the old municipal stadium all the way to the Jake, which has never really changed. And to the days of Progressive Field, John Adams lofted in his perch in center field with his big drum, rallying a team that actually got good after so many decades of John Adams pounding a drum for seemingly no reason. But he was a true fan who stuck with it. And we talk about fair weather fans, and it bothers me tremendously when Cleveland Browns fans just go, oh, we're just going to go for the Bengals. Or when Cleveland.com says, well, we're just going to report now with the Bengals. And, whatever happened to just being a fan? I'm a fan of the Cleveland Browns. And you know what Deshaun Watson did, and I don't think it was good. But, that's the guy who's going to be on the field for my team, and I'm going to cheer my team on. I don't know what's so hard to understand about that. I cheered for my team when Deshaun Kaiser played, for Christ's sake, and it was hard. And you remember those post-game shows, don't you? Or Brandon Whedon, you remember those? I could say so much. Here I am, 19 years, going on 20 years doing this. And that was nothing. John Adams, almost 50 years. And it took ill health and a pandemic to get him out of there. And he watched some awful baseball along with guys like me in the 70s. The Indians were horrible. Just horrible. Let's see, somebody is hopping in. Hi, David. How you doing?
Doing good, Moo. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Just doing a little eulogy here for John Adams. And if you thought the 70s were bad, the 80s didn't bring any better luck. And then the beginning of the 90s was like, oh, we finally getting some good young players. And then the back half of the 90s to the beginning of the 2000s were like wowzers. And that's when the consecutive sellout streak began at the Jake, and suddenly John Adams was surrounded by people. But you ask yourself, who were these people? I sound like Seinfeld. Who were these people? and where did they go? Because once they went back to being just a mid-market team. It all turned into the Tampa Bay Rays, and nobody wanted to watch them anymore. And then when they became good, they get into the playoffs, and all these people show up again. It's like, fuck you people. And the thing about John Adams, he was only 71 years old, and this guy had more bad health in the last couple of years that you could shake a stick at. And I was so sorry to hear that it ended the way that it did. But,
do we know what he was sick with?
Just so many things. He had a triple bypass surgery, and that in and of itself, if you're not in good health, can do all kinds of damage to you. A heart valve replacement was listed, thyroid problems, just a person whose time had unfortunately come. And this story tugs at me because he is the personification of somebody who my team, through thick or thin. That's right. John Adams was at Len Barker's perfect game. He saw so much in his time that the horrible, he had to go to a stopwatch and watch Ron Hassey try to run to first base. And for younger people, you have to go back. Ron Hassey was a catcher who ran like he had shit in his pants. and really incredibly bad players that would come up through Cleveland, and people who were traded for who were at the end of their careers. There was John Adams pounding away. When the last game that I ever saw live was in '95, and that was I was there for Albert Bell's 50th home run, and some folks in the record industry got me tickets, but they were nosebleed seats, man. I mean, way up in the upper deck. But watching that and the experience of hearing the noise was unbelievable. And I didn't live in Northeast Ohio any longer. At that time, I was in Michigan, but it was a jump, hop, and a skip over the border. And it was an opportunity to see this awesome 95 Indians team. But I went to the old Muni. God, when I was 17, 18 years old as a disc jockey, I regularly would go up there and pick my seats. It was just that sparse. And there's something to be said about fans who stay with their team through thick and thin, and there are very few of them in reality. And this guy was the personification of that. And I know everybody in the organization is mourning today because of this. So best to his family. And life goes on, but it's only 71, just not long enough. His life, in my mind, just wasn't long enough. So now let's move on to something a little bit less weepy here. You watched the games this weekend. I know David did.
Yes, I did.
And you might want to crank up your mic or get a little closer to your mic.
How's that?
It's still like you're a little backgroundy, but try. What kind of mic are you using, Dave?
On my cell phone.
Oh, you're on your cell phone. Okay, so you can't eat that. I got it. All right, I got you. But it's fine. We can hear you fine. I want to talk about the Bengals first because I'm just jumping for joy, and it isn't because I hate the Bengals, because I have no reason to hate the Bengals. The only time I really disliked the Bengals was when Sam Wyche opened his big fat yap. That was the only time that I really cared one way or another about the Cincinnati Bengals. And I remember when we had a big season with Bernie Kosar, and I remember the first play of the game, he just threw a bomb to Langhorne, to Reggie Langhorne, and and we just blew Cincinnati off the field at Riverfront. That was
the consensus. The consensus here is most people don't really hate the Bengals as much as the Ravens and the Steelers. The thing is that for a period of time, the Bengals were awful like we were.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and I look at this through the eyes of somebody whose team finds ways to lose. And believe me, the Browns have more ways of losing, and we've been reminded of that by the national media over and over and over again. So that's, where I come from. So it's not like for real Bengals fans, I'm not happy that your team lost, and I'm not trying to rub salt into the wounds. But the same things that I say about the Cleveland Browns and players who shoot their mouths off before important games and then go out and just play like shit. I don't want to hear from Joe Mixon that they're the big dogs of the East. All right. Mm-hmm. Because what would Joe Mixon know? I don't see no fucking heavy duty trophies up on his mantle. I don't remember people mentioning Joe Mixon in the elite running back category.
And why the hell are they calling themselves the East? Would they be Midwest technically?
Because they have to call themselves something, because they're self-immersed. These players, and it's not just on the Bengals, all right, but I'm using this as a real illustration. It's like good for the Bengals that you got Joe Burrow. Okay. I mean, you got to get it right eventually, and you're eventually going to end up with somebody better than David Klingler. I get it. And he's been very good. And you were able to get Jamar Chase because you didn't trade off too many of your draft assets, like some teams we know. And you got a wide receiver who's exceedingly talented. And you made some improvements to your offensive line in the offseason, which was your Achilles heel prior to. And, your team, in a remarkable way, seeing as how Mike Brown is still around, went at this with a pretty intelligent buildup. But, they're not, and I'm going to say this again, and I don't want to infuriate anybody. The Bengals aren't that good. At no time did I think that the Browns couldn't beat the Bengals. And we're going to bring Bronk in. Hi, Bronk. How you doing?
You're in bed with Bronk. What a thrill.
Woohoo! After hours with Broncola.
After hours.
But I don't fear the Bengals because Baker Mayfield whipped their tail. We go into their stadium. We didn't rename their stadium into, I don't know what you would call Cincinnati Stadium. What is it called? Who's got the naming rights to Cincinnati's stadium?
The Paycor.
The Paycor. Paycor Mayfield. Paycor Mayfield.
Paycor Mayfield Stadium.
Yep.
No, we didn't do that shit.
No, we could have done.
Who are these people? Who are they that they beat the Chiefs
a
couple times? Yeah. And
Who they?
They're just going to talk trash like this and no respect whatsoever. And acting like they're the swaggy guys, and they haven't accomplished a goddamn thing. And the funny thing was, in the aftermath of the game, I saw really weird comments, like the announcers were really talking up the Chiefs and Mahomes and all this, and he's no Tom Brady. And it's like, well, I don't think anybody thinks that Patrick Mahomes is Tom Brady. I don't believe anyone thinks that way. But anybody who writes all this negativity about Patrick Mahomes when he played with a high ankle sprain, I'd like to see you do it. And second of all,
it's fucking hurt.
That if you don't think that he's a special quarterback, then you have racial bias, very close, bubbling to the surface, because the guy has been very good. All right. And he showed courage. He came out and he didn't, say, I can't do this. He went out and did the very best he could. And he threw for over 300 yards against the Bengals with a bum ankle. So I'm not going to sit there and criticize Patrick Mahomes. The big thing is we're going to question the officials. And it's like, if you if you watch the show at all, I mean, if you seriously believe that these games are not being tampered with, then you should be a WWE fan. You should be out there waving the banners and, acting like somebody just raped your uncle, when, a match is going on. If you believe this shit, you're crazy. I mean, there is an agenda. I'm not going to deny that there's an agenda. Now, the examples that are being used, it depends whether you're really talking letter of the law. And the thing that bothers me about the NFL officials is that if they would just call things to the letter of the law, there would be no problems.
Yeah.
That was grounding on Burrow. Okay? Plain and simple, that is the definition. When you go back to pass and you spike the ball into the ground when you're being rushed and nobody has a chance to catch it at all, and you're in the box still, that's grounding. And I shouldn't have to explain this, except for the fact that if Tom Brady does it, it's not grounding. Go ahead, Bronk.
It seemed to me yesterday watching these games, one is that NFL rules can be interpreted a bit like biblical sayings. They can mean anything you want them to mean. So you can have intentional grounding on any play, or you can have pass interference on any play, or defensive holding.
Yeah. I mean, there is a definition, and you can find holding literally on every play. The thing that I don't like about this, and I see what people are saying,
where was the expedited review guy yesterday that was so prominent in that Vikings playoff game, but he was nowhere to, or woman, he was nowhere to be found yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that it was smooth sailing out there, because it never is. If they would just follow the rules of the game, instead of considering who it is that, it's just like the NBA. Guy drives to the basket, he gets tomahawked, and he almost gets beheaded. And they look at who it is and go, nah, not a foul.
No.
You put one finger on, Luka Doncic, and it's whistles blowing from all over every angle. I mean,
well, Joel Embiid, man, he must have the most fouls called in his favor of anybody.
So that to me is the nature of the superstar mentality, that fans expect their guys to get certain treatment. But none of these Bengals are superstars because they haven't done a fucking thing yet.
Not at all. And I'm glad they pointed out that they got beat on Halloween by the Cleveland Browns, and that was their last loss before yesterday. And they were horrible in that game, and they're not a good team.
And Zach Taylor finds ways to lose. He still hasn't shaken this, and they're in a big build in Cincinnati because of Burrow and because of Chase. The clock is ticking. Burrow said, I want to stay in Cincinnati. But Pratt, when he came off the field, doesn't feel that way right now because he's already been there for 4 fucking years. And next year, he has an opportunity to, or he's been there for 5 years. He's got an opportunity to get the hell out of Dodge. And he intimated that he was going to be looking at money, and that he's not saying he's not coming back. But Pratt was the guy who exploded outside the locker room as he was walking in, yelling at Osai, the guy who roughed Mahomes. Why would you even touch the quarterback? And, and he had to go in front now and apologize for being a bad teammate. But he's absolutely right. I don't care if the guy's 22, if he's 16, or if he's 34. I mean, in that moment, you can't do that. But you know what the other thing is, for every Cincinnati fan who's going, it's all bullshit, the referee screwed us. First of all, you haven't been a Cleveland fan, so you know nothing about it.
You know nothing of our pain.
You know nothing about Bottlegate. You know nothing about the bad calls that, the Dwayne Rudd and his helmet, the things that only Cleveland would get called for.
All Buster Screen had to do was walk out in the field to get a pass interference call. So,
I mean, so I don't want to hear that shit. But the bottom line of this is, first of all, you let a crippled man who couldn't even hardly walk to the sideline scramble for a first down.
Correct.
All right. So you just decided, your defensive guys just decided, we're going to go into full coverage and we're going to take our eyes off the quarterback, and he runs for a first down. But to make it worse, if there's a way of making it worse, the guy hits him late. And it was a late hit. It was an obvious foul, and it ended the game. And, that would have been a 55+ yard field goal, without that penalty tacked on. And in that cold weather, it was not likely that the ball, and if you looked at the kick that made it from 47 to win the game for them, it wasn't like he boomed it far enough that it was going to go 57 yards. So quit your bitching, for one thing. Your player made a stupid play, and that's the way that goes. And the other thing is, you got off to a quick start. If you come out and the Chiefs come out, and you knew that the Chiefs had to come out strong because their quarterback has warmed up that ankle, and it's going to be as warm as it's going to get, and then he's going to be playing after that. Chiefs come out, and you fall behind them. There is no reason why you should have come out of the gates in that game slow, but the Bengals did.
Yep.
And you find yourself down, 14-3 quickly. And when that kind of thing happens, you're off to a bad start in a foreign stadium. You come back to get even, but your quarterback, who's supposed to be this Adonis, this hipster, the next Tom Brady. And again, if I hear that one more time, that's like every musician who is crowned the next Bob Dylan. That was like guaranteed to flush the guy's career down the toilet.
Yeah, you don't want to be compared to anybody, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow's Joe Burrow, and he's a young quarterback, and he threw 2 interceptions. He had a 70 rating for the game, and that, in a big game, is screwing the pooch. Sorry. I mean, you needed a big game from him. He didn't give it to you. He made mistakes. And the guy with the bum ankle threw for over 300 yards and didn't make but one mistake. He fumbled the ball, and that damn near cost the Chiefs big time. But I don't look at this as a winning effort by the Bengals. Joe Mixon, 8 carries for 19 yards. Really? The whole team rushed for 71 yards. Really? So they didn't run block. They didn't pass protect. What did they do? They didn't play well enough to win. They were lucky that a cripple was at quarterback, or else they would have been beaten the same way that the 49ers were beaten.
Yeah.
I mean, if Mahomes is healthy, and look at who Mahomes was throwing to. Where were his receivers?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I make a kiss my hoof point here? Because what have I been saying all freaking years? That when it came down to the playoffs, we were going to watch practice squad versus practice squads. And that's what happened. We were watching the 49ers 4-stringers. We were watching wide receivers that wouldn't make it in the USFL in the late game. I mean, there was so much an offensive lineman that didn't belong on the field. The NFL needs to sort this shit out. The season's too long and the rosters are too small. And I'm sick of watching people that aren't qualified playing in championship games.
I mean, you look at Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 6 receptions, and Kelsey, of course, had his 7. All right. But he was throwing Isaiah Pacheco out of the backfield. And there's nobody. I mean, Sky Moore caught 3 balls for 4 yards a catch. I mean, that's the deal. It wasn't like you were going up against these incredible, the speedsters and the ultimate, Kansas City receiving core. You had a crippled quarterback throwing to nobody.
Yes, Sky Moore is like a better version of David fucking Bell.
That's right.
And
separation.
And what's his face? The young kid on the program, he would actually say that. So there you go. I think Derek Frisbee.
You got bigger balls than I got, Christopher, because I don't gamble on any of it, and because Well, I haven't been given the script, but I'm glad you won the 250. What are you going to do with it? That's the question. You're gonna gamble on another game. You're gonna lose it. I hope not.
Hope he doesn't spend on hookers and blow.
Right here at the dealership, hookers.
and I know that there are people trying to get in, and they're not real people.
This is the reach around section.
But they're people who think they're gonna throw pornography on the program. They don't realize that I've already set this up. We know who you are. You best get the fuck out of here because there's going to be hell to pay. I'm just warning people. Christopher cashed it out. That's that's the thing to do, man. Save it for a rainy day.
We are not Caesars. Speaking of which, yesterday, because I got these league passes and shit, I was watching the Cavs game and the Chiefs game sort of simultaneously. I was mostly pausing the Chiefs game and watching the Cavs game live. And that was enjoyable as fuck, even though we were beating a D-League or G-League or whatever they call that league team that the Clippers put out. I mean, seeing Jetty Osmond on Turkish Appreciation Day banging 7 threes was pretty fucking amazing. You gotta love him.
I suppose we'll talk about that a little later. I'm just not done riffing yet as far as the
Well, the league's corrupt, the players are hurt, and they're all going to die young. So that's kind of the summary of it all.
Yep.
Go ahead, David.
I was going to say there's no better way to put it.
Yeah. And this whole idea of virtually no preseason games, and then we're adding 17 regular season games. It's beginning to sound like the movie Rollerball with James Caan, where they keep changing the rules until you realize it's not a game. It's just a substitute for war. That's kind of, what it's like. But Cincinnati has no excuses.
But we nearly had the slap shot thing with Antonio Brown or whoever that guy was who did the striptease when he went off the field earlier in the year. So, it's a cross between rollerball and slap shot nowadays.
Yeah. I just want to say that Cincinnati had plenty of chances to win that game, and they did not play well enough. Joe Burrow did not play well enough. The offensive line didn't show up. The team didn't show up to begin the game because they were just convinced that they were the big dogs of the East. And
they could eat a dick, basically.
Well, that's what they ate. And in the end, they're sitting at home. And they're no different than the Browns players. They're sitting at home. And they're wondering, what if? But I don't think they're smart enough. I mean, there are two teams going after the coordinators for the Bengals, the offensive and the defensive coordinator for head coaching interviews.
Wow.
And this is what happens. I mean, if you're an offensive coordinator, if you're Kellen Moore, and you're like, you got Dak Prescott in Dallas, and it's like, get me out of here. All right, you pull a topaz.
No.
Get me out of here. So and you get a job, man. I mean, you land in the lap of luxury. Now you're the offensive coordinator for the Chargers.
Yep.
And you got a real quarterback, not the real arm. And the importance of it has nothing to do with being an offensive coordinator. That's the stepping stone to becoming a head coach, or at least getting interviewed. And the more you get interviewed, the more people consider that, this guy could be a head coach.
They'll probably give him the job when they fire Staley.
Well, that's just it. Staley is really, in my mind, is close to the edge anyway.
Yep.
Yes.
Because
Close to the
he
edge.
makes, and I think Zach Taylor is closer than he realizes because he's one season away. If something happens and they don't move forward next year, people are going to wonder, look, we've given him the weapons. What is the deal here? But I don't know that they're going to lose their offensive or defensive coordinator. But the fact of the matter is, when a team starts to win, every owner, which will tell you how stupid these men are, will just offer jobs to people who touched the hem of Bill Belichick's garment once. No, I mean, they act as if this is power is conveyed to people.
Ring. Yeah.
Very strange.
The situation shows it's better to hire from Andy Reid because his coaches have gone on to success.
Yeah. And by the way, Mahomes, 326 yards, and 105.4 rating. You don't deserve to win.
Yep.
If your defense is that if that's all your defense will do, and he had one guy, he had Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce still killed him.
Yeah.
So I was feeling like a Browns fan looking at the Browns. It's like, you knew they had to throw to him. It's like, what did you think was going to happen? And they did anyway. So quit your bitching, Cincinnati. First of all, you're a forgotten city in the southern part of the state. You're close to Kentucky, and that's where inbreeding happens. That's 2. 3, don't tell me you're all boss and superior, because we know what you've been in recent years. And Andy Dalton was your quarterback who basically, and Marvin Lewis, they took you into one game of the playoffs and never won when they went there.
Yep.
They just kept losing and losing and losing in the first round. So don't tell me you've had enough suffering. You don't have to pretend. You are the Bungles. Bungles is Bungles. And the reason you see that I become upset with players, they badmouth, and I will badmouth back. The truth of the matter is, if they were really that good, I would be the first one to acknowledge it. But there's nothing that separates them that much. It's not like, what a great team they are. No.
Yeah, and then there was the Cincinnati mayor.
Oh, that whole thing about Burrowhead Stadium is just, I mean, why? And the fans were picking up on that too. And why would you? Yeah, why would you do that? I mean,
he wanted Patrick Mahomes to take a paternity test to prove that Joe Burrow was his father.
It's so stupid. The whole thing is stupid. Yep. And the guy who committed the penalty, Joseph Asai, was in near tears in front of the press. He had a teammate out there with him just to kind of shield off some of the more painful questions.
Yeah.
And
so was Mary Kay Cabot there at the post-game conference?
Yeah. It's a sad time for him. He's 22, first year with the team. And boy, that's just not the way you want to get it started. But it was a bonehead play, and it's unfortunate. But that's the way, if it's 20-20, one bad play, one wrong step by your defensive back, and somebody gets behind you, that's the way it goes. And so it went. I don't think that, nobody can complain in Cincinnati that you had as close to a free ride into the Super Bowl as any team I've seen.
Has ever had.
Buffalo didn't even come to play against Cincinnati. I don't know why that was.
Because that's who they are.
Yeah. They just didn't come to play. And then for Cincinnati to do the same thing and come into Arrowhead and just not put the wood to them right off the bat. I mean,
maybe that's a trend, because maybe we'll see Kansas City do the same thing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Amazing. Cincinnati had to beat a Pittsburgh team with no quarterback. They had to beat Buffalo, who didn't bother to play in their own stadium, and then they had to beat a crippled quarterback. They can all eat dicks, these Cincinnati people.
Now, there's a little bit of time for Mahomes to feel a little better, but
He
Jalen
ain't.
Hurts is looking like the real deal. The Eagles are looking like the real deal. They've been a very solid football team.
I'll tell you
And
why that is. They've got all pros in every position element.
they got a good team.
They got all pro defensive backs, linebackers, guys on the line, Jalen Hurts. That's what you need. That's what the Browns need. We need somebody who's like an all pro linebacker. We need somebody, we got Garrett. We need somebody who actually is an all pro in the defense of backs. And we got all pros on the line. Now we need all pros on the receivers. And then we will be just as good as these teams if we have all pro coaching.
Christopher, what is it you want to show a screenshot of?
That's worrying.
Yeah.
At any rate, I don't want an answer to that question, I don't think. But what happens in that game, Brock Purdy gets hurt like 6 plays.
Yeah, exactly. 4th string, 5th string quarterback. They're showing Juszczyk the offensive plays in case he has to go in and be quarterback. I don't want to see this shit.
Well, it's unfortunate, but and the thing about Brock Purdy is that
he's real Purdy.
Yeah, he had a come out of nowhere, a real come out of nowhere season, and that's wonderful. Now the 49ers are stuck at a very uncomfortable place because what is Brock Purdy moving forward? What do you really know about Brock Purdy except that he played nice controlled football for you? But is he the guy who's going to have a full year of that?
No, the league will figure him out. He's had his Nick Foles moment, and then the league is going to figure him out, and then he's going to be, just another also ran quarterback.
But you know what the sad part of this is that, and I'm looking right now at video of how the arm was hurt. And you're vulnerable when your arm is extended like this, and Brock's not a big guy. And
quarterbacks probably wouldn't be able to come back from that kind of injury.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with ulnar injuries, that's like baseball pitcher stuff.
It's a UCL tear.
A UCL. Oh my God. I mean, it's bad stuff. And you know what the sad part of it is? The sad part of it is that he had to go back in and play the rest of the game, basically.
Yeah.
And how would you tell him, oh, and by the way, you're not going to be the starting quarterback ever again here. But thanks for just taking one for the team. It's a brutal game. And he couldn't even throw the ball. So that game was over before it began almost.
Yep.
So, it's and we have time to wait for the Super Bowl to see what happens. And, I don't bet on these games because teams come out and it's mystifying how unready and unprepared they appear to be. I mean, they can interview the Bengals defensive coordinator all they want, but the first question they should ask is, why was Kelsey open so much? Somebody, obviously, there's shortcuts that people want to take to winning, and there is no shortcut. There aren't that many good coaches in the NFL. That's what it comes down to. And Zach Taylor really is no better than Kevin Stefanski.
Oh God, no.
He has had a better quarterback for a couple of years.
Yes.
And Joe Burrow, I don't think anybody's going to question, is better than Baker Mayfield. And that's fine. But now we got a real guy. What's going to happen when they have to play us twice a year? If we end up getting our shit together offensively, how how are they going to throw this at us? And I know they can stop the run because God only knows the 49ers didn't run for shit either. But again, Zach Taylor is an overly emotional guy. You see him on the sidelines. I would like a combination of him and Stefanski. Instead, Stefanski will sit there and it's like, the quiet guy who's getting his ass pumped in prison, you know, and you don't want to scream.
Sisters.
If you scream, then that makes you look weak. All right. Yeah. And then you have Zach Taylor, who is basically, he's like the Robin Williams of head coaches, flying off the handle.
Well, have you seen Nick Sirianni?
No.
You used to see how animated he gets, man. He goes nuts.
I mean, so there isn't a great, perfect situation that's happening in Cincinnati. It's just that they're the ones who got a quarterback, but their offensive line got hurt anyway, and they were exposed in the end, and they still don't have a running back.
Yep.
They pretended that Joe Mixon was, capable, and he's not capable of putting two games together. He had a good game the last time.
Kareem Hunt.
Well, no, I mean, what he is further down the road, Kareem Hunt.
They're about the same guy. You know the stupidest thing I saw was, why was the Empire State Building changed to the Eagles colors after they won the game? That made no sense to me.
Live out there.
Say that again, Bronk.
The Empire State Building in Manhattan lit itself up last night in the Eagles colors after the Eagles had won their game.
Well, there's a lot of Eagles fans that live out that way.
Well, yeah, close to New Jersey and all that.
But they did it when the Chiefs won their game too.
This is why we talk about, I'm responding to bass player here. Why didn't San Francisco have a real quarterback ready in case Purdy got hurt? Kind of late now. But the fact of the matter is there's not a never-ending supply of quarterbacks, and the Browns did the right thing getting Jacoby Brissett, because Jacoby Brissett, by all contemporary standards, is a solid backup quarterback. But no, you're not going to the Super Bowl with Jacoby Brissett.
He was outstanding for what he was.
He does what he does.
Absolutely outstanding.
And you don't expect that your quarterback's going to miss 11 games, okay? You don't expect that going into a season. And by the time it got put together with the goofy coaching that we had and God only knows what else, Brissett deserved a better fate. But that's at least a qualified backup quarterback. But look at the teams out there. Who are the backup quarterbacks for these teams who, you're telling me that a guy like Henny has to come in? They could have amputated one of Mahomes' legs and he would have started.
And Philadelphia.
Chad Henne is older than Greg Oden.
Yeah, I mean, so I look at the league and I say, God, there's like this huge drop off between the starting quarterback and the backup. Who is Cincinnati's backup quarterback?
Oh, I don't even know. I thought it was Brandon Allen.
Oh,
I mean, people don't even know. And it's like you pray to the baby Jesus that Joe Burrow stays healthy.
Philadelphia.
He won't.
But it's in the old days, man, and I'm old school. In the old days, I mean, you had Johnny Unitas.
Yeah.
But Johnny Unitas had a backup.
Earl Morrall,
that's right. He of the crew cut. And you look at a lot of teams that, had Bob Greasy.
Yep.
Well,
look at the Browns in 1988. When Kozar went down, we ended up having Don Strock.
But Strock was a veteran.
Yeah.
And he won in
Houston.
A
playoff game, I think.
He won in Houston. The fact of the matter is, in those days, the realization was quarterbacks get hurt. You didn't want to give up any games. Now it's protect the quarterback at all costs. But man, you got to have wide receivers. You got to, and so you're trading depth to get draft picks to find star players, but depth is lacking on every team. And this brings your point home, Bronk, is that as a fan, you don't like to watch backups because there is a huge difference between the caliber of the starting players and what falls below them. And the Browns were a great example. I mean, you say, well, we got Amari Cooper in the offseason, and we got Donovan Peoples-Jones, and we got, and we got the Chief at tight end. And but that it's like one guy gets hurt, and it's like, then what do you have? Well, we got Anthony Schwartz. We got David Bell. I mean, the drop off is just so tremendous that,
Well, I would argue that there should be expanded rosters so that you got guys trained up in your system, and that they could actually get better during the year. That would give more jobs to players too. And then maybe these backups would play better if they were, actually on the team. 70-man roster, 20-man practice squad.
Captain Fierce is at work now, so he's going to listen to the broadcast today.
Well, that's great to know.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Hey, well, what does Peter Ellis think of all this? Does he have any thoughts up in heaven?
Oh, what it's like. It's like having a beautiful girlfriend, and you'd pay anything in the world for her, but in the end, what ends up happening is you end up with her sister, who's as ugly as a mutt. And I don't mean to be insulting about backup players. Some backup players will find their way into the league, but they're not ready to play today. I mean, at least boxing matches, fighters can pull out of fights. I mean, could you imagine? It's like if the fans paid top dollar to see a clash of two titans, and all of a sudden they see Charlie Brown in one corner, and it's like, what the fuck's that? And it's like, well, he's the stand-in because the other guy got hurt.
I mean, I didn't want to see John Henry Johnson V at quarterback for the 49ers or whatever his name was. I mean, no.
Baker Mayfield being better than Johnson. He's better than Lyndon Johnson, who's been dead for how long now? No, I got nothing against Baker Mayfield either, but he's got a long road to hoe because they're saying the team most interested in him is the Jets. You don't want to go there. You just don't want to do that.
He'll end up in Denver if he doesn't end up in the Jets.
Yeah, God.
God.
And it was so funny. They broke the news that Kellen Moore wasn't returning as Cowboys offensive coordinator. And then immediately the news broke that he'd gotten the job in San Diego or in Los Angeles. The Chargers are always San Diego to me anyway. And so it's like, well, you'd want out of Dallas too if you'd have an opportunity to,
and now McCarthy's calling the plays.
I mean, you've got something to look forward to. And I don't think that Jermaine Pratt should, he may personally regret what he screamed out after the game, but Jermaine Pratt's been a good player for the Bengals. You hate to see a knucklehead play cost you, and every player, the bumps and bruises and vast injuries and damage for life that these players incur is all to get to play in the Super Bowl. And you're one game away from playing in the Super Bowl, and some 22-year-old schmuck goes out and late hits a quarterback who's crippled, and you lose the game. I'm sorry. I would have said the same thing Jermaine Pratt said, and it would have been out of frustration. You got to understand where he's coming from. He's been a good player. He's done great things for the Bengals. And, I'm sure that he's looking around him saying, something's always happening to us. I don't like Cincinnati. And he might just get the hell out,
Not come up here.
Who knows? But
can I predict what the next big accident's going to be during the NFL game?
What's that?
You know, it's sort of a BCOD moment here. Is that on that play where Mahomes gets knocked sideways out of bounds? One of these days, these players or some official or some other player is going to get knocked into one of those giant heating elements that they have during these cold weather games. And that's going to fucking fuck them up, something chronic. And we're going to see somebody with like 3-degree burns over half their body or something. I'm convinced this is going to happen at some point.
There's so little room, and the thing that I mean, these players are outfitted in footwear to play to specific field conditions.
Yeah.
But the sideline ain't those conditions. So
No.
anytime a quarterback runs out of bounds, he's not safe. Even if a guy hits him, he can't get any traction to keep his balance. He's going to fall the way he's going to fall, and whatever's in front of him, he's going to run into. It's a dangerous situation, and the NFL doesn't do anything about anything that's dangerous because that's just
because it hasn't happened yet. They can't look at it and say, "Oh, this might happen." They only do shit after it's happened.
Yeah, it was like Major League Baseball putting all the nets up down the third and first baseline. Some kid gets hit in the head and dies, and it's like
some little infant or something.
Like you couldn't figure out that there were screening line drives, going into and but it has to, the one guy got killed in the minor leagues who was the first base coach, got hit in the head.
Yep, hit in the head.
You don't got to wear a helmet now. I mean, you think?
Not a lot of foresight going on there.
And the Bengals right guard Alex Kappa said he would have played in the Super Bowl had Cincinnati advanced, but they didn't. So what difference does that make when all is said and done?
The Texans?
What about the Texans?
The 49ers defensive coordinator, he's going to be their new head coach.
Oh, really? What's his name?
Wow.
D'Amico Ryan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to probably finalize it probably in the next couple days.
That's another thing that amused me. The end of the 49ers game where they had that massive fight. Now, if they're going to suspend people, I'd love it if they suspended somebody on the Eagles and they missed the Super Bowl because of that fight in the last minute. Myles Garrett gets in a fight, gets suspended for the whole fucking season. Let's suspend an Eagle for that fight.
The thing about that fight is Trent Williams has had a history of doing that dating back to his time in Washington. He's
correct.
Notorious. Yeah, he's notorious for being a sore loser.
Yeah.
And if you want to question officials, because I have to get off the air here in a couple of minutes, if you watch the Lakers lose to the Celtics, or better put, if you watched the Celtics being gifted a win against the Lakers.
What happened? I heard about this, but I didn't see it.
God. I mean, they tied the game up, and LeBron went to the hoop like he's done a gazillion times in his career, was laying the ball up, and the guy came and hit him in the arm so hard that the ball didn't even get up to the rim, and he went tumbling out of bounds, and they didn't call the foul. Didn't get the call. I mean, and afterwards, here is what the Referees Association said.
Oh, God, this will be good.
Quote, like everyone else, referees make mistakes, the union wrote. We made one at the end of last night's game, and that is gut-wrenching for us. This play will weigh heavily and cause sleepless nights as we count our money. Why don't they go fuck themselves? Yes. Enough of this nonsense. LeBron James is going to be gifted the greatest rounds of applause when he becomes the leading scorer in NBA history, as he should be. And he's gotten so much attention. He's run with it and invested wisely. He has an empire right now. Yeah. And he has done wonderful things for the Ohio State University, for the University of Akron. Yeah. He's done things for Northeast Ohio. people still badmouth him because it's Cleveland, and Cleveland fans are always embittered about something. But now the NBA doesn't talk about LeBron because the Lakers aren't part of a storyline. The Lakers are just a bad basketball team. So LeBron goes out and scores 36 points, right? And he's going in for the basket and they just mangle him and he doesn't get the call. That's the NBA's way of saying you're not part of the storyline anymore. You know, it will give you your Rolex for your retirement gift, but you know, your days of being God, that's over with. There are other people now who, if you touch them with a molecule of your finger, that will be calling fouls for. It's just not you anymore. Just be grateful that somebody didn't have like a weed whacker and cut your head off and you died. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, freaking Giannis, he's the big guy now.
Oh yeah. Giannis can sit there and, you know, anytime he goes to the basket, he'll end up at the free throw line.
Yep.
So, you know, Ron Shane's asking the question, tomorrow is the big game against the Heat. It was wonderful that we got to play a totally short-handed Clippers team. Poor Ty Lue, he had nobody to play.
Yeah, and who wants to see that? I enjoyed it because we were kicking their ass and we were watching our
Jenny enjoyed
10th and
it.
11th and 12th guys win. I mean, I was loving it because we were kicking ass. But as a spectacle, if you were a neutral, you would turn that game off in the middle of the first quarter.
Why were they out anyway? Was it more that load management crap?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. I mean, you can't go out there and when you're in, they'd won like 5 games in a row or 4 or 5 games in a row, and they're, you know, had a 28-24 record or something like that. It was, 27-23, something like that. And they're playing for the playoffs, and you have guys who have had legitimate injuries in their careers, and you're going on a back-to-back. It's not going to play those people.
Yeah, I mean, if you were a kid, you wanted to see Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and all these other dudes that they sat down for that game. You'd been like, oh God, I'm never going to get to see these guys.
But we've had games like that where our guys didn't play, and it was like, oh God, this is going to be a real bow wow of a game. But man, at one point the Cavaliers were up by like 30 some odd
40 points.
Yeah,
40.
It was a 40.
A 40.
Yeah,
yeah. I think third quarter.
I think it peaked. Yeah, and you know, we were just shitting all over them, but it's a win, 31-21. But we got the Heat, and the Heat is breathing down our backs. And the Heat lost their last game. They're going to be coming in rested and ready. We're going to be rested and ready. That's going to be a hell of a basketball game. And you know what problems we have, because not only do they play defense, but they got a legitimate guy coming off the bench in Harrow, who is just a hero. He can put up 20, 25 points off the bench just like that. And we don't have that kind of a bench figure who can consistently come in and get the job done. Yeah, we lack consistency there. It's going to be an interesting game, but it was wonderful to see the Cavaliers having some fun. And the thing that I'm noticing the most is that I'm finally seeing Evan Mobley start to grow up and start to understand that he can flash across the lane, catch the ball, and shoot it without putting the ball on the floor. That he can get past to, behind the arc and put up a 3 and not dribble the ball. That he's finding spots on the floor. They're running plays for him to find those spots on the floor that he is effective shooting from. And it's making a big difference in his game. And it's making his defense all the better, because instead of just not doing anything offensively and just deferring to Darius Garland and to Donovan Mitchell, he is now becoming an important part of the offense of the team. That's one thing that's wonderful. One thing that I want people to look out for. Trade deadline around the corner, and the Cavaliers need a 3-point shooter in the worst kind of way, because we are, Donovan and Darius are going to be covered. And, you got to have a guy when you have such good passing guards, especially Darius. You got to find the guy who finds that soft spot that behind the arc, whether it's in the corner or on the wing, behind the 3-point arc, and it is a deadly shooter. We have to find that guy, but we don't have much to play with. Do not be surprised if we make a deal that's going to lose a player that you like.
Yeah, well, I like Okoro. I think he's getting better.
Well, he ain't going. He ain't going nowhere. Wait, I'm getting it. Kevin Love, excuse me. Kevin Love. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised, because we need to set ourselves up, not just to get somebody and rent somebody, but we got to get somebody that we can hold on to after that. So it's going to be a tough nut. But what's important is seeing that we're developing, Evan Mobley into a little bit more of a scoring threat is going to help this team tremendously, because the more opportunities there are for those players, the better off, that you're not going to be able to just lay off, or flood the gates against Darius and Donovan. And the names that are being bandied about don't excite me. Michael Beasley does not excite me in the least. Is that Beasley's first name? Is that Beasley's first name? What is Beasley's first name?
I think it is Michael.
Yeah,
Well, maybe there was a Michael, but maybe this is a different one. No, well, I know it's a different one.
Mrs. Beasley, what TV program was she on? Andy Griffith or
how am I
Brady
supposed
Bunch?
to? Oh, I don't have the foggiest notion. I'm not that
Mrs.
old.
Beasley. Rick May would know.
I always laugh you out because you have no credibility. A blind pig finds an acorn once in a while, Amsterdam. Again, Kevin Love right now is just somebody who's hurt, not playing well. And if you can use contract, it's a painful thing because he's stayed in Cleveland through the LeBron thing. He's got his championship, but business can be a harsh thing. The Cavaliers have a very difficult decision that they're going to be weighing over on what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. But believe me, they need somebody stronger from behind the arc than Karis LeVert, because there's too many games where we wind up shooting low percentages from three and we're losing games by like 5 points. And if we were just hitting threes, it would be so much easier, especially with the attention that our guards command from the defensive team. It's imperative. Gonna have to do something, but I guess that's that. And I'm finished. And but don't worry, I'm gonna be back on Friday. I'm not like finished. We're not like Lowry Markkinen, not finish.
Yeah.
I'm just
Finish
tonight. All right. But thanks for tuning in. I do
You
appreciate.
know who we haven't heard from a long time? Howard Cosell. What would he be thought of the games yesterday?
What would Howard Cosell think about the games? Okay, it would be something that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It would be like, little do people realize that Brock Purdy was a shoe salesman. We're like, what is, why? Yeah. And poor John Meredith had to play off of that shit,
Yeah.
Well, whatever, Howard, it's whatever. It's like, yeah, you can always, and Right there. Right there.
Right
That's
there.
the guy I'm talking about. I don't know his name, but number 26. That's the guy. And it's like, what? What about him? And he's like, I have no idea. I mean, and he would, this is the guy who used to try to make the Battle of the Network Stars, Look at Lola Falana's ass working that bicycle. Thanks, Howard. That's really great cred, Great cred. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again on Friday to talk more Northeast Ohio and national sports as it comes down the pike.
If you're younger than 55, Google Lola Falana.
Nice ass. That's like, you know something? I really like Lola Falana's ass too. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.